Thanks everyone for coming today. Since we don't have a lot of time, I thought rather than go through long introductions for everyone on the panel, you have a conference pack and you know all of our profiles. But what I'd like to do is just give everyone on the panel an opportunity to spend 1 minute and just tell you who they are and why they're here. And why don't we start at the end with Juha?
Good morning everyone, my name is Järvinen, I'm Chief Commercial Officer of Finnair. Finnair, the shortcut between Europe and Asia. Why we're here, we believe Asia is our future. My background, been in 17 years in the industry, 3 of them at Finnair. And really the key for this event is the innovation and customer journey, like it was said in the beginning. And that's what we are committed as an airline. Even though a legacy airline, we believe the future is in customer journey and the innovation that we can offer to our passengers. So really looking forward to these 2 days.
Good morning, I'm Emirsyah Satar. I used to be the CEO of Garuda for 10 years, transforming the company. I just stepped down last December. Now I'm more like an observer. I'm in the Chamber of Commerce, overviewing also the transportation in terms of Indonesia. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Rhee, and I'm the CEO for AirAsia for North Asia. And actually my first thought is maybe I should move to the LCC seats. But since the company's paying, I'm okay to stay in business class. Traditionally AirAsia's growth and success has been driven out of South Asia countries. But we do see our future as we continue to expand. North Asia has become our primary market and strategy. So that's my task. How do we become successful, replicate our model in North Asia as well? And thank you for Järvinen and Shakeel for hosting us.
Hello, good morning. My name is Okada from All Nippon Airways, Tokyo, Japan. My role right now is Special Advisor to our Chairman. And already we made some briefing together, and that was the most exciting session already, but I'm sure we will repeat the same thing, so that you will enjoy to pick up the most modern agenda that we have to think together for the future. And my current personal interest is how to improve our digital communication with our customer. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Conrad Clifford. I'm the Regional Vice President, Asia Pacific for IATA, the Air Transport Association. We represent 250 airlines across the world, accounting for about 84% of the world's air traffic. I'm absolutely delighted to be here this morning.
Thank you. As you all see from my profile in the book, I'm Shakeel. I head up Aviado Partners Consulting. We're one of the world's aviation-focused consulting firms, focusing primarily on commercial areas. So thank you everyone for joining the panel. Since we have limited time, we're going to get right into it. I received a lot of emails from members in the audience asking about specific questions, and so let me just start off by saying obviously the industry has had quite a lot of very difficult years, but last year the industry as a whole started to see some good profits, and the forecast for this year seems to be quite positive as well. Overall, it seems that profitability is due to good capacity discipline on the Atlantic and the Pacific over the last 5-10 years, which has helped obviously the industry as a whole to get better. But our profitability as industry is dragged down by a lack of capacity discipline in regional Europe and in some parts of Asia. Having said that, of course, in Europe we don't see a lot of growth, so capacity discipline is important. In Asia we do see a lot of growth opportunity, so one has to say capacity investment is important for the long term. So 2 questions I'd like to sort of get out of the way quickly that were being emailed to me were a question about the impact of lower fuel prices, as well as the impact of the strong US dollar and what that is doing for profit outlook in the short and medium term. I'd like to start on the subject quickly about the question of low fuel prices. And I guess my question here is, who's going to benefit in the short term? And who's going to benefit in the medium term? And how long do you think this issue will go on? And let me start with James, since we've had a good discussion about this already.
Yeah, I think it's very hard for anybody to predict even medium and long-term fuel prices. But I think as a group, we believe actually fuel prices are something that we can leverage probably a little longer than maybe what most people in the industry think. And I think due to certain geopolitical dynamics and industry changes, plus the ability to hedge, I think you can actually use fuel prices in the longer term as a strategic advantage. So it's what you do with those fuel prices. And as fuel prices come lower, from an LCC perspective, we actually have a relative cost advantage to FSCs because our relative cost position against FSCs improves. So, what do you do with that? Do you sit on the profits? Do you just return that to shareholders, or do you invest in long-term growth opportunities? And so I think that would be our key issue. What do we do with those fuel profits?
Okay. And with any of the airlines that I'm seeing, those that are benefiting from the lower fuel price are the ones that are cash rich, because actually many airlines are hedged years in advance. They're hedged 60 to 80% in the next 12 months and then diminishing beyond that. So actually as an industry, there's too much talk about the benefit of low fuel prices because most airlines can't benefit in the short term because they've locked in high prices. So the other question I was getting from a lot of people in the audience was, what about demand for fuel efficient aircraft? So Juha, you're going to be one of the first operators of the A350. Exciting news for Finnair.
Yeah, definitely. We get the first aircraft in October, first one in Europe. The key thing really is the fuel-efficient aircraft because the fuel price will go up and down. And I think hopefully many other airlines agree that at the end of the day, it's the fuel efficiency, the unit cost of your production that is the key. And that's why, I mean, if we take 350 as an example compared to a 340, we calculate roughly a 10 million euro saving per aircraft on an annual basis. So 10 million euro on your bottom line is a considerable lot of money. And you take the current fuel price reduction, which has happened now. The problem is when you've hedged up to 67%, like in the case of Finnair, we will see the impact more on the second half of this year, not on the first half. But that's the fact of life in this business. So really the key is the fuel efficiency in the aircraft.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get these two very boring subjects out of the way, because I know people are asking a lot of questions about this. So let's move to the second boring subject, which is exchange rates. I was with an airline, I was mentioning to the panel, I was with an airline in Europe last week, and it hit me just how much the exchange rates are actually hurting airlines more than the fuel effects at the moment. So some of the notes that I looked at here, the euro to US dollar exchange rate 2014 March to 2015 at the moment is a 23% increase. When I look at the Japanese yen to the US dollar, it's an 18% increase over 2014. It's a 54% increase versus 2012. So, when I take a look at that sort of situation, if I look at a $200,000 lease rate per month on an aircraft, this comes out to 24 million yen in the extra cost from the exchange rate. That's not the sort of number most airlines can absorb. So if I come back to, actually Amir, you're a finance background and historically, what's your thought about the effect of exchange rates?
Well, I think for a country, like Indonesia, where you see that it's always the U.S. dollar always appreciates, rupiah always depreciates, it really gives a big so-called impact to the bottom line. I mean, last year, as you see, rupiah has depreciated more than almost 20% against U.S. dollars, and who are suffering are airlines who doesn't have any international exposure. Because as you can see that the total cost of the airline itself is almost 75% is US dollar based. And if you're a rupiah and you go only rupiah domestic, it's quite, you're in big trouble. And on top of that, the government also puts a cap. So you really cannot increase it according to the market. So that is a problem. But I think for Garuda in this case last year, that is one. But the other one is also, you see like the depreciation of yen, which is also impacting because we have to sell in yen in Japan. Yeah. So that means we got a double hit. And then and also our business in Australia was quite good also. Australian dollars also depreciated. So that is a really big issue that we're facing. That's why it really hit our bottom line.
Yeah. So we didn't want to start on a negative note, but these are two technical subjects that a lot of people are asking questions about. So we just wanted to highlight that although the profit in the industry seems to be quite good, we do have two short-term issues, and that's exchange rates and that's fuel prices. The fuel prices, the benefit most airlines won't be able to get. That, I think, is the main point we're hearing in the short term. And the exchange rate is a short-term threat to many airlines, both of which are issues that can be addressed if you're cash rich. So if you're cash rich, you can hedge against both, but that's increasing to your cost base at the moment.
But Shakeel, just on the fuel price, I just want to brief you. I think it also depends on how the market is. For example, like Indonesia, we are somehow the customer. We experience that 80% of the fuel price increase can somehow be absorbed by the customer. So as the airline, we got to find another 20% efficiency somewhere. Utilization of the aircraft, everything, to really get it, to cover it. So that is why, if you look at Garuda, we are not really fully hedged. So Garuda will be basically enjoying this fuel decrease, although the exchange rate also will depreciate. But overall, net will be gain on this.
So switching to growth, and I think that's a key part to that. So there's lots of growth opportunity in Asia. There's lots of growth opportunity Asia to Europe. There's lots of growth opportunity in the Pacific. We've just finished doing some network analysis for a couple of airlines on the Pacific, and it's incredible to see how much, although there's been a lot of capacity go in and yields have fallen, there's actually still capacity constraint on the Pacific. There's lots of growth opportunity, especially West Coast to North Asia. So when we start thinking about offsetting some of these issues, we can grow out of some of this with scale. James, you sent me an email about scale being important in the industry. And the other thing is, again, growing with lowering the cost base with newer aircraft, lower unit cost, 350, 777, 300ER, and so on. But the biggest opportunity for growth in the region is ASEAN 2015, opening up. I hate to come back to you, Amir, but
yes, 2015 is we got the ASEAN Open Sky. I think in this case, Indonesia, I think it's more than 40% of the market is in Indonesia. So we see a lot of potential here. But I think the problem, I wouldn't say the problem, the challenges that we're facing is infrastructure.
Yeah.
You're talking about not only the airports, but air traffic controls and all these things. This is quite a challenge because the region is growing, and people are putting more capacity. We always look at IATA projection; it's always growing. IATA projection is always growth, never goes down. So people are just ordering putting more capacity, but the market, I think, I would say that other countries in the ASEAN will be enjoying more than Indonesia, because almost half of it is the market itself. And with this new government in Indonesia, I think they are really focusing in improving this infrastructure. They've cut the fuel subsidy, which is they got a lot of excess of the budget, and they put all the money into infrastructure, not only on the aviation, but also other infrastructure. So it's quite a potential for this region.
Conrad, on this point about infrastructure, I mean, we have the conversation about infrastructure, airspace and airports has been ongoing in Southeast Asia for a long time.
Yeah.
But then we see also quite a lot of liberalization happening in North Asia. When we see the channel opening up, we see lots more capacity even in and out of Japan International. When we take a look at both these regions from an IATA perspective, what do you see as risks or constraints hampering growth?
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity for growth, and you see this in Southeast Asia, in places like Indonesia, where really the airport capacity needs to be dramatically increased. And that means you've got to increase not only the hard infrastructure, but also the soft infrastructure. So air traffic controllers, airport personnel, all of that end of things. In Tokyo, there's a very exciting plan, 2020, 20 million inbound tourist arrivals. But at the moment, the air traffic controllers can't handle that kind of volume. So we're working with air traffic control in Japan, JCAB, to try and increase the capacity of the airspace over Tokyo.
Actually, from an ANA perspective, it must be exciting times, because in the last few years there's been a lot of developments in both Narita and Haneda, but you have a lot more international capacity now going out of Haneda, yourself and your star partners.
Talking about Far East Tokyo, not the same here, but we still have enough margin to expect more demand. So as you said, the infrastructure is now improving, so that Haneda will be more open to international destinations, and also Narita will continue to be a good international airport. So actually, talking about ANA itself, non-Japanese customers are getting more and more. One reason is the cheaper yen. So our friends are coming to Japan. You will get surprised if you're in Tokyo. Many Chinese, many Thai people, even Indian people are enjoying Tokyo City. And 2020 Olympic Games will be in Tokyo. So that gives all the Japanese people to be prepared for, welcome to Japan campaign. So infrastructure, capability to accommodate the customer back in Tokyo will be quickly improved. So talking about the demand itself, I believe more and more demand will come to Japan.
I just wanted to add one thing about Japan that we're seeing as we set up our organization, because I agree with Okada-san. I think one of the #1 priorities of the Abe administration right now is how do they facilitate preparation for the 2020 Olympics. But what you do have is you have a little bit of a lag in the regulatory environment that enables that. So how do we quicken the pace of regulatory, kind of a little bit more liberalization there. But the other thing, and I don't know if other markets see this, the #1 issue that we see in Japan right now for future growth is actually pilots, the supply of pilots. And so that's one of the challenges we're trying to figure out. How do we develop, train a pilot supply for the future? So that's.
Well, one is an issue of pilots. The other is, as a pilot myself, the one thing I've noticed is when I go back to fly where I trained, I just see it's difficult to even get a slot on a plane. The pilot training just cannot keep up. But the challenge actually, when I look at this region, I see the average amount of experience per pilot is actually quite low, because the industry has just grown so fast. So of course this has wider reaching implications for the industry. But one of the challenges though is, we can build airplanes very fast. And actually seems we can build airplanes faster than we can do anything else. IATA are not the only ones who always say the industry is growing. So do the manufacturers, because it's in their best interest to say so. It's more difficult then to get the crew, to get the infrastructure. But at the end of the day, still, experience takes time. It takes time in the airlines to get the experience. It takes time in the pilots. It takes time, but behind all of this, it takes time for demand to show up. So one of the things is I want to come back to is there's lots of growth, there's lots of opportunity. There's no question the size of this market is massive. The growth rate here is bigger than anywhere else in the world. But that is new segments of the market that are entering the market that are price sensitive primarily. So we've seen the expansion of LCCs in this region. But when do we see the expansion of that market segment moving up market? What sort of experience are you seeing from 3 full-service carriers of people that are now flying 5-10 years want more?
Yeah, I can comment on China, for example, which for us, for Finnair, is one of the key markets. We have a big challenge there that nobody questions the fact that China is one of the fastest growing aviation markets also. The problem is the middle class is still very small. They're growing exponentially. The new cities in Western China, where we operate as well, it's very seasonal. The winter period is very tough. So there is definitely growing problems or teething problems in the markets. And that's of course something for the airlines to balance that risk, that we all want to be in China. What is the right time for each city? Chongqing in Western China has 30 million people, but only a small part of them travel. What is the right time to go into each of these cities? So definitely there's the teething problems on different markets, but no question about it, the growth is there. It's all about the timing.
Yeah. Millennials. Oh, sorry.
Talking about I mean, the possibility to expand our market.
Yes.
As the opening remark by Adam, innovation is really the key. And how can we innovate ourselves? It is, my belief, is a digital way. So mobility like iPhones and internet is more and more changing the behavior of the consumers. So it is not only LCC or full service carrier, but for entire industry, it is going to be a very important immediate agenda that we should consider.
Yeah. And this is a good transition to the topic of millennials, right? Millennials are going to be a different wave. So we've seen growth in new segments, but price-sensitive segments. But now we have the millennials hitting, and the millennials are a massive population, but they're not just price-sensitive. So how are we as an industry going to have to adjust? Until now, we've been primarily a push industry. You know, this is what we sell you, you take it or leave it. LCC's forced us to rethink that model, but now customers are telling us what they want. So perhaps we can start again.
Sitting next to LCC guy, Mr. LCC versus Legacy, I really respect their challenges. When I participate the LCC gathering, the most favorite topic is how to entertain our customer. And they're keen to study the behavior changes. Legacy carrier busy dealing with to cut the cost. And they're always thinking internally, not externally. But the most important thing within this industry is to understand the change of the behavior of our consumer. And I think of the human beings, their fundamental desire to fly is very simple. They want to fly safely and get to the destination on timely. And they really enjoy to the reliable, dependable air services. It is common to LCC and Legacy. So the fundamental requirement is the same, but how to get it is now changing. Me versus my two sons versus my two grandchildren, they are different kind of human beings. Are we ready to accommodate the future changes? And LCC guys are smart enough to move ahead, and usual legacy carrier is a bit behind. So that is my continuing struggle.
How do you see the change in AirAsia? I mean, AirAsia is not a new business anymore. Do you see the tastes of your passengers changing?
Well, so without giving away too much of our secret sauce and you know how we do this, but I agree with Okada-san because from the very beginning, I think AirAsia viewed passengers not as passengers, customers, but as consumers. Yeah. So for us, not as just a one-time passenger, but in a longer-term relationship. And how do we build a brand? You know, we've been very, it's been a lot of hard work, and we've been very successful in convincing people that we do have a good product. You know, and for the young people, they think we have a sexy, fun company, which we do. And so building that through social media and other channels, we spent tremendous time there. So I think that's something that the FSCs can learn. But fundamentally, I think the value propositions for customers are different. At the LCC, like you said, Okada-san, we just believe most people want to get, from air travel, they want to get from one point to the other. And how do you make that safe, efficient, and a good experience? I think at the FSC level, they do think traveling in itself is an experience. And sometimes it's a wonderful experience. I just flew Singapore Airline over, and I've flown ANA, believe me, many times when I can. And yes, the flight itself is nicer, And so maybe there's a value proposition there in a customer segment that appreciates that, especially the business traveler. So I think there is a different customer, but what I think is much more important, as Okada-san says, is how do you own that consumer experience? How do you own the consumer communication process? And I don't want to scare people here that are from the travel agent industry, but I think one big mistake that the FSCs make is they abdicate their relationship with the customer to travel agents, right? And just resell tickets, and then the travel agent owns the customer, versus how can you work with the travel agent maybe to do something more different where you add value together.
I think coming to Juha, I think this might be true still in this market, but I think if we look at the experience of European carriers and North American carriers, for the last 20 years, they've taken ownership of the customer back. Right? I mean, you want sales on your own IBE, you want your, even you have the TMC market. Many full-service carriers have TMCs accessing portals that are the airlines own, that are not, they're branded. So perhaps you can speak from your experience on that.
I think the big transformation that we see in the legacy airlines now is the fact that in the past, you only sold the ticket and then you were happy to serve the customer on board. But the big transformation that has happened now with the connectivity and the new millennials is that we can actually, in what other business you have a customer in your shop for 8 to 10 hours. And the legacy airlines have not really used it at all. We've just been happy to serve them 8 hours. But with the new technology, we can sell them services, we can offer them retail alternatives, we can offer them new things to do in the destination. We have to give them added value. And that's something that the legacy airlines has to learn from the LCCs, that when we have the passenger on board, what more we can offer them to their destination, what other services we can sell them. I'm not talking about products on board. I'm talking about destination services, taking different elements which travel agents usually been doing, or tour operators, because the airline can easily do it themselves as well. So I think I see that as the next phase for the legacy airlines, that we can actually, you really benefit the 8 hours that we have the customer in our shop.
Yeah. I came across on Emirates yesterday, and I always enjoy, between the movies or so on, listening to the radio program, and they're usually interviewing somebody. And yesterday they were interviewing the new head of Emirates Holidays. And it's interesting because many full-service carriers have been abandoning their vacations businesses. But the interview with the head of Emirates Holidays was, he said, well, look, we are owning our customer relationship, but until now, the business has been about taking you from A to B. But now we want to own your whole journey experience. We want to own your experience in B. And then they talked about the quality control of that experience. And they said, well, still today, whether it's LCCs or full-service carriers, we are selling hotels, we are selling cars, we're even selling experiences on the other end. But Emirates talked about guaranteeing the entire experience. They don't sell anything they haven't tried. Yeah?
Talking about full-service carrier, I don't like this terminology because I'd say it's a quality airline to guarantee dependable operation and sure kind of assurance that you will be comfortable enough to go to the final destination. So like you told, the LCCs are serving to point, but legacy carrier, full service or network carrier are committed to make sure our customer will safely land at the final destination. And it is the flexibility, availability, and in case of delay cancellations, the quality airline will guarantee the customer will not suffer out. The better way to communicate how to continue their journey. Yeah. So the value to pay, the customer will willing to pay such kind of invisible value. So value is not only the leg length or expensive steak or high quality wine. Instead, the future customer will appreciate such kind of value. They will expect additional value to high-end quality airline, and the same person will choose, based on the purpose of their trip, LCC product and quality airline product. So both will survive if we are carefree thinking together.
But I think in fairness, good LCCs will do the same things. Good LCCs like an AirAsia will protect passengers, will get you from A to B safely, reliably. If there's a cancellation, they will look after you. I think that, you know, in every category we have good full-service network legacy carriers, and we have some that are not so good at protecting passengers, and we have LCCs that are good at doing it. And
Sorry, I just have to kind of comment on this one, because I don't like the comment, I mean the term FSC, I understand. I also don't actually like the comment LCC.
LCC is also wrong. Yeah.
So maybe the industry needs to figure out better terms, right? But there's parts that I agree with Okada-san, because I think flexibility is something that you have more with your traditional carriers, right? Not safety, because I want to make that very important. We do not compromise safety. LCCs do not compromise, and I would actually ask people, look at the actual records of people who track safety records. LCCs are actually the safest airlines in the world, and there's a reason for that, because of their business model. But I think the flexibility that Okada-san talks about, being able to change your flight, you know, if the flight is canceled or it's delayed, you can immediately get onto another flight. That's something that's probably not as flexible at an LCC, because there's a cost associated with that. But what we do is unbundle that. There's certainly insurance. If you want to purchase that in advance, you can also purchase it, but it's not bundled into the price.
But I think, I mean, Juha, you've got a Fair Family implemented at Finnair, and one of the most successful models of that was, it came out of Air Canada. When I look at the lowest fare products out of full-service airlines, they look the same as the LCC product, the ones that are doing it well. And then when I look at LCCs that have their flexi products, they look a lot like full-service carriers' flexi products. So is there really such a difference between even the flexibility that LCCs versus full-service airlines are offering on short haul?
I mean, it is becoming more and more hybrid, and it's difficult to separate them clearly. But I think still there are still key differences which the main airlines or the legacy airlines are still offering is really the alternatives that we can really offer, everything from the really low-cost alternative to the full-service elements, the corporate programs, the loyalty programs. But no question about it, the models are getting closer and closer and hybrid. And the question is, how far can you go when the models start to go their separate ways again? And that's what the millennium travelers could be. One of the triggers that actually there is a certain element of the consumers who want the premium service again. They don't want to go all the way down to the simple alternative. So I think we will face a situation soon that the models potentially start going slightly their separate ways, at least on short haul.
It's interesting. I opened up the fare rules on Jetstar and Qantas yesterday, and we took the lowest fare class and went into the fare rules for both of them, and I couldn't find much of a difference, except that the fee was $77 for one and $75 for the other, for a change fee. But other than that, I couldn't really see anything else. You know, so is there really such a difference on the lowest fare? And you even see the price points are the same, but we'll cover that separately. Yeah,
we're actually calling it new model airlines rather than LCCs and FSCs, because actually what you see with what people call the LCCs, on some airlines you've got 40% intralining, i.e. people traveling on one airline to their hub, and it's a low-cost carrier, supposedly, and then they're connecting on. And that's a very profitable way for that carrier to do business. So we're looking at these airlines and we're seeing that actually they're sort of picking and choosing. And in Asia Pacific, it seems we're doing it more efficiently perhaps than in other parts of the world, where the new model airlines are picking the best and putting it together. And within IATA and the sort of older carriers, if you like, there's also a distribution issue where we're tied into the GDSs. And at the moment, we're innovating with a new distribution capability to be able to use intranet and internet more effectively to get our product into all the way down to the agents and obviously to passengers as well. So there's a lot of, people talk about convergence. I don't think it's convergence either. I think it's people picking the best and then implementing it.
But it's interesting. I have to disagree with you about interlining being a good thing for LCCs, for example. From a passenger perspective, you're right. There's a lot more choice in Asia, and you can interline between all sorts of FSCs. You can interline between FSC, LCC, all directions. But these airlines aren't making money. So it's very difficult to make money with a full service to an LCC interline if the LCC has to carry all those costs, right?
Based on our experiences, thinking of the near future, interlining with LCC is a reasonable solution for the European market. Because when I really experienced, ANA flight and then connected to German wings, I feel very comfortable and very efficient. So we do not, the legacy carrier do not have to stay with a legacy carrier network only. So eventually, through digital way to communicate or digital way to purchase airline products, LCC versus full service SC, two opposites will getting closer to each other, and some part will be overlapped. But I'm not saying these two things will get together. Again, the point-to-point service needs to be efficient, and full network carrier service will enjoy to offer flexibility and more option to the customer. But some part is, I would say, gray area, overlapping area, and depends on the market, Europe or North America or over the Pacific Ocean, the feasibility is a bit different.
I think I want to come back to an important point Juha made, that, and how many industries do you get to lock your customer in your shop for X amount of time? So, the longer the stage length, the longer the customer is either trapped, or the longer you have an opportunity as a business to impress them. So that, to some degree, is a differentiator between short haul and full service and what a customer expectation is. But let's overlap on this the millennials, right? Everyone's talking about the millennials. Are they really going to make a difference in the way your businesses need to behave in the market? We can start full service and come.
I would say that the brand does play a role for the millennials, potentially more than the generation before. They want to have experience. They do expect an experience also on board, especially on long haul. They do expect that they will have an experience while they're traveling onto their destination. We have to give them relevant content. They will not accept just average, everybody gets the same. And that's what we're currently working on, a Trepas 350 in-flight entertainment system. How can we offer them relevant personal offer so that they feel that they are valued as an individual? Nobody wants to be treated as a mass. And I think that applies especially for the Asian millennials. And that's something that the consumers are expecting the airlines to deliver. They're not going to expect a mediocre personalization anymore. And is going to be a big challenge, and that's very much an IT technology question, that how does the legacy carriers catch up? Because we have a way to go, and that's what we're trying to be in forefront of that going forward.
Long haul issue. Actually, this time I came to Singapore by 787 airplane, and it was very comfortable. And I'm not selling ANA, but not selling Boeing, but 787 is really comfortable when you take a long-range flight. It must be because of the cabin altitude and humidity. And it is common to LCC or full-service carrier model. So how can we fill in the customer requirement is to make sure customer will get a nice sleep during long-haul flight. So if it's done, full service or limited service doesn't care much about the consumer. Consumer will pay for value. So if they want to enjoy the good meal, they can pay for that. So full service carrier will automate it to give that product. But if in future long haul LCC should come up, they can ask their customer to pay for that additional value. That the issue is a good airplane will only make our customer happier. So better to buy modern airplane.
But at some point, look, we have at some point everybody's going to have 787s and 350s. And I mean, the 777-300ER has already significantly enhanced the passenger experience. The 380s already significantly enhanced the passenger experience. To be honest, I flew 787 on one of the longest routes a couple of months ago. Did I notice a difference? No, not really. I was booked on a 350 for this flight, but had to change my plans, unfortunately. So I was really looking forward to that. But at the end of the day, when everybody's got 787s and everybody's got 350s and everybody's got 777, the product starts becoming ubiquitous with everyone. Then it comes back to the experience, right? So how are we going to capture the customer? And what I'm hearing is the millennial doesn't want a commodity.
Maybe, Adam, I think at the end of the day, it's the customer who decides, like in our case, when we, develop our customer experience, we really put step by step, we found out, you got this pre-journey, pre-flight, in-flight, post-flight, post-journey. And we looked at, there was about 28 touch points in terms of looking at it. So we try to really put, at the end of the day, us airlines, we're selling the same product from end to end. We got to differentiate ourselves. Let's say it's just like when you're staying in a hotel. When you go to Ritz, for example, okay, the pillow is going to be like this. That's the expectation that people will want. So I think each airlines also, we really have to differentiate ourselves. What is expected? For example, like in Garuda case, probably we try to sell what's the best of Indonesia. And so people know, if you travel in Garuda for the brand, you get that. I guess in Anna's case, we got a good ramen, Ippudo ramen. I remember that those are the things that people remember and then people can experience that differentiates. Otherwise, you're just selling a commodity with a full service. You don't differentiate. So I think this is one thing that us, although we have to say full service airline, really can differentiate. And one thing the challenge is how does the millennial look at this? I think millennials are more simple, and I guess I hate to say this, but more and more, they like to see this guy more than us because they always think that the full service is kind of old.
Daddy's airline.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the challenge, I think, for the full service in terms of how do we transform that, like what Juha is saying, transforming in terms of the branding, so we don't feel like we are the old, daddy's friend, so-called like that.
But to some extent, we are responsible for them thinking that way, right? I think we can learn a lot from other industries, right? So BMW introduced the 1 Series a few years ago. Mercedes introduced the A-Class. Right? These cars are nowhere near the 7 Series or S-Class that we know. And Audi introduced the A1, A2, so on. You can't even compare to the ride of an S8. But why did they do that? They did that because they said, we want to develop a relationship with this customer very early. So we don't want you to go and buy a Chevrolet or buy something else. We want you to buy a cheap BMW. We'll be a loss leader, but you'll then become a BMW customer. But I need to give you a taste of the BMW experience and get you hooked. Now, we as airlines tend to try to have one product for all. And we tend to say that the customer who wants the 7 Series wants also the same experience as the one who wants the 1 Series. The only difference we make is these seats. Right? And even the meal, front and back, tends to be more or less the same meal, packaged differently. Right? So what can we really do? Because what I'm hearing is, and what I see in the market is that millennials don't want to be told anymore what they're going to get. And the reason they like AirAsia is they sense this is an airline maybe that listens more to what they want and is adjusting and is nimble and is modernizing. Or at least that's the perception.
So a lot of interesting things said by the panel. So I wish we had more time to delve into some of these.
We'll have a little more.
But fundamentally, I believe when you talk about customer segments, the airlines need to decide who is my customer segment. And I do believe that for the legacy carriers, millennials are not their core customers. At least it depends on the life, the life cycle of where they are in their careers and their life. But early young millennials should never be the targets of the legacy carriers. Because if you start to change your message and try to dilute your brand, it hurts you as a company. Like you said, you're never going to be an LCC customer, right? So,
sorry to all the LCCs out there.
and which is okay, because we should have, any successful company knows their customer, they know their segment, and their message and their brand is very consistent. So I think the danger for the legacy carriers, if they try to think they have to serve all different segments and have 100 different types of messages, and it's going to hurt them, I think, right? The reasons that we've been successful with millennials is, and once again, I hate to give away our secrets, but I mean, you guys are smart guys, you're going to figure this out anyway. Because, first of all, you just talked about, you think of the customer from when he gets on the plane and when he gets off. That's not how we think about it. We think about his entire life. What does he do throughout his day? How do we think of them as consumers? Our partners like Rakuten, Tata that we have in different countries, we're not talking about just the air trip. We're talking about experience. How do we leverage partners? How do we leverage customer understanding for a wider experience? So I think that's something the FSCs are going to learn too. It's not just about the flight. Okada-san said something very, very insightful when we were discussing before, remember? You said if we don't do it, Google will do it. That's what you said. But you're right. But see, we already knew that. We knew that when we started the company.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done, and that's been the approach.
Yeah.
But I would say that, please, I think if you want to be successful, know your customer, focus on your brand, don't try to serve too many customers or you're going to hurt your company.
But I think that's the big change that the legacy carriers need to do in order to convert into the new realities, that we need to get hold of the millennials, because otherwise it's a bit of a suicide if we don't, because they are the future business travelers. So we need to be able to give them relevant content. And you're fully right, legacy carriers traditionally have not been good at managing the journey, but now we are slowly getting there. And we will get there, because it is about the whole customer journey from the moment of planning a trip all the way to the post-trip. The recommendations in social media, how can we make sure that we give them relevant content, relevant access to information about the airline and the experience? That's the only way to survive in the future.
But I want to come back to my Emirates experience. And the first time I flew with Emirates was 2005. My first ever flight with them was the experience I ever had with any airline. And I said I'd never fly Emirates again. And then I was forced to fly them again 3 years ago. And one of the best travel experiences I ever had. And since then, I'm flying with Emirates every month. What I like about them is they are trying to own the whole experience. I found recently that when I start looking for hotels, even if I don't book my flight with Emirates, I'm often going to the Emirates website to see what they can offer me as a hotel package on my destination. The whole experience. Even if I don't want the flight segment of that, they're still offering me the rest. Whereas lots of airlines are saying, I'll offer you the hotel and the car and everything else only as an add-on if you bought the flight in the first place. And that sort of seems to me like missing the point. Right? So, but there's a point you made earlier, Okada-san, about the, we need to listen more to the customer, we need to adjust more to the customer, and we need to be market-driven as legacy carriers. I think maybe we're not giving legacy carriers enough credit, though. That legacy carriers have come a long way already. The LCC forced us to do that.
It has nothing to do with the LCC or whatever. It is a careful observation of the human behavior. For example, recently I took my wife to Vienna, and the first thing I did is to secure my hotel instead of flight, because from Tokyo to Vienna we got plenty of options, including Starlines. But one thing is to make sure we get a nice hotel. The purpose is to make sure my wife will be happier. So air journey is important, but staying is more important. And after that, I go into the internet to find a good sightseeing, good restaurant. Everything is already known to big data, whatever. And finally, I choose the flight schedule. And I've been telling this because I'm the industry guy, so my sequence is very professional. But coming back from Vienna to Tokyo, I say hello to the bakery person. They are also the pair, my husband and wife. And the bakery lady, telling me, she made every booking arrangement through internet. She's the usual wife living in Westport, a local city in Japan. I never do. Usually, the Japanese customer will go to agent and buy a package tour. But instead, she really enjoyed booking railway, hotels, and air ticket, and settlement done by their credit card. So already, the market is changing rapidly.
Yeah.
So we, airline, needs to be aware of the very quick changes of the rail market.
And this it's a point we talked about when we had our briefing session earlier. This is a sign of the differences in the development from different markets as well. I grew up in Canada, so what you're talking about now as new for you was for me 20 years ago. The idea for someone from Canada going and buying a package other than to the Caribbean, other than that, we bought everything a la carte. We bought our flights, we bought our hotels and so on. But since I've been living in Germany now for 8 years, it's shocking to me still to see 2 travel agencies on every street corner, and to see that what you might imagine is a very modern, advanced society in Germany still depends largely on the tour operator market. Or even if you don't need tours, your standard business trips are still done, travel agencies and so on. So to your point, James, we've given up ownership in many of these markets of the customer to travel agencies. But I think Finnair is different, if I'm not wrong. Finnair is trying to own the customer, right? And your market also is an a la carte market.
Yeah. The Scandinavian market is definitely, you could say, more developed than Germany when it comes to travel. We don't have travel agencies anymore in the street corners, only the business travel agents. But I think, the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges for legacy airlines to get a direct contact to the customer is actually the travel agents in Asia, for example. If we talk about the Chinese tour groups, we don't have their contact details. We can't get a hold of the passenger. We would like to offer them different services, but we can't get a hold of them because, of course, the travel agency wants to keep all the details of the passenger. And that is one of the, you could say, bottlenecks. And of course, we have to find a way to actually get a contact and contact details for these passengers more in advance. We have them now in Europe. We also piece by piece in Germany. But still the big chunk is the Asian travelers who we don't have a direct relationship, and we're trying to build our own direct channels through the meta searches, through the different channels, so that we can actually attract the customer directly. And it's the new independent travelers, the millennials, who I believe strongly will not book through travel agency anymore. They will go straight online, straight to the airline or online travel agency. And by doing that, we then can also get the contact details and start building up that relationship to the individual traveler, which we have not been able to do for a while.
Now, you bring up an interesting point, the purchasing behavior. Today's modern traveler is interested in airline brands, but the majority of the modern traveler's purchase is through OTAs. It's through, yes, there are lots of good airlines, but why would I pay 20% more for one good airline versus another good airline? So I'm unlikely to go to Finnair's website and British Airways website and JAL website and ANA's website. I'm going to go to Expedia. I'm going to go to Kayak. I'm going to go to all these places. How do you build that relationship with the customer who is saying, even if I'm product sensitive, there's still some degree of price sensitivity, and I might look at Finnair's website first because I live in Helsinki, but then I'm going to check Kayak and check everybody else, right?
That's definitely a challenge. The NDC will definitely partially start solving it, because we can't give them enough content. So when you purchase an airline ticket through an OTA, quite often you don't see the different benefits of each airline offering. Are they a 4-star airline, 5-star airline? What is their punctuality record? You don't get that data through an OTA today, but I'm sure in the future, and that's what we are pushing through the NDC and different alternatives, that we can actually give them more relevant data, like the hotel business.
I was just thinking TripAdvisor for airlines.
My thinking is
as we discussed beforehand, the key is the branding. And because there will be no big difference in between the operating airline, then the customer perception is their preference to this brand versus the other brand. It could be Skytrax 5-star, but it's not a 5-star itself, but customer knowledge or experiences.
Yeah.
So it cannot be done by digital way. It will be still a human-to-human touch. So it could be cabin attendants, or it could be airport personnel, and that is really a big change. Which part of procedure be supported by IT or mobile devices, and what parts need to be still human-oriented way to make sure to capture the customer mind, and that will be the branding issue.
Yeah.
Talking about the Japanese market, the Japanese people are very sensitive to the quality. We call it omotenashi is a Japanese term, welcoming our customer. So they are very easy to get disappointed. Mm-hmm. So the real challenge for LCC or whoever coming into Japanese market, they will face that very sensitive customer reaction. Yeah. So it is a branding issue as a bigger terminology, but the branding needs to be very carefully investigated. And again, branding, you are making the very good branding effort, I guess.
Well, sorry, I don't want to go over, but branding's important, but I think customer education is extremely important. So for our business model, well, we've been successful, and we didn't have any, we had a partnership with ANA, as many people know. I think the thing is, as long as the customer knows what they're buying, then it's okay. If you don't, if they think they're buying something else, and they think they're buying omotenashi, but they don't get it, then they're upset. But that's why customer education is very important. Millennials tend to be better at self-educating themselves on what the product is. So, yeah, I agree. That's
and I think that's part of the challenge is that lots of people underestimate the complexity of branding. That, one has to be, recognize a brand first. Okay, I see Garuda, I've seen it before, I know what it means. Brand awareness is the next level of, okay, I've seen the logo, but what does it stand for? And then all the way to brand equity, where that has a meaning for me. And I think part of the challenge is that when we talk about branding, we tend to talk about different pieces of this, but a lot of companies don't necessarily make the investment of saying, when someone sees my logo, they have to not only understand that it means something, they have to know what it means to them, and I have to build some kind of brand loyalty with them before I'm going to be able to charge them more money. Because until I can get brand loyalty, my branding is worthless, right? There's no value to it. So we've now just finished our session, so we've got about 10 minutes of questions. So I'd like to pass it on to the floor, if anyone's got any questions. Let's make our guests feel valuable. So we've got one back there.
I'm Jamie Counter with TripAdvisor and SeatGuru. Pretty much agree with everything that's been said today. I do have a question regarding kind of the customer experience, because it's a challenge for airlines, especially airlines that have complex fleets. What we haven't really talked about is the customer experience on a 777-300. I think someone said that was kind of all the same once everyone has a 777 or a 787. But that's not the case, because you can put 9 seats across or 10 seats across. And that's a huge impact on the customer. At SeatGuru, we see extreme negative backlash when you have that 10th seat in a row. Same with the 787. When you have 9 seats vice 8, I think ANA has done a very good job with 8 seats across, and they get very high marks. So how does that play into kind of the consideration set, making sure across your fleet that you have a consistent experience and that you actually are thinking about passenger comfort at the end of the day, instead of just shoving as many seats in the plane as you can?
I mean, if you don't mind if I jump on that for a second, look, I think what one has to think about seat density, one has to couple that with the airline. So some airlines that pack seats in, it's not just the density that's giving them a bad recognition, it's part of their overall approach to the customer. So that's why part of their mindset is, I want to go 10 across, but I'm also going to be 30-inch pitch. On the other hand, Emirates is also 10 across on a 777, but has very high marks. But that's because they've got the longest seat pitch of any 777 customer. So one can't just look at one element and say, well, this is going to be negative all across the board. Because we have to add the service aspect on board as well. Some airlines that go 9 across on the 787 have very good marks because they have good service. The ones that get bad marks are because they have bad service. So it's not just seat pitch, at least in my experience.
The difficulty for airline is the customer requirements are quite different. Depends on the distance from this point to the other point. If it is really long distance haul operation, the customer really want to lie flat. But if it is a short haul, they ask us a cheaper price for a quick get in and a quick get off. So adjusted to however, we need to make money, so we cannot buy too many airplanes. We are careful enough to own the sufficient number of airplanes. So sometimes market requirements versus our product make some mismatch. So that is our continuing agenda to improve. Unfortunately, the current airplane is really not flexible. The seat position cannot be moved this way and the other way. It is over-regulated, I would say, over-concerned hardware. So if we get more flexibility to make it adjusted according to the customer wants or depend on the destination, airline can offer more comfortable environment to the customer.
Next question.
Do we have any other questions?
Adam, you must have a good one.
So for me, I guess I look at it as coming from my retail background, right? So I always challenge, and I know when I'm talking to my colleagues inside of HP, when we're thinking about the airlines or the airports, is think of them as a retailer. Because your customers are coming into your shop, whether they're coming into a brick and mortar or they're going onto your website or they're coming into the airport, it's a retail experience. So is that right or wrong? Am I right in thinking that in terms of you need to be thinking like a retailer, or should you really be thinking like an airline and really it is about going from A to B?
So I can speak for AirAsia, and we think of the customer 24/7, 365. And even with our partnerships, we say this is a customer not about airlines, but about life products. So we don't just limit it to flight products. We try to link it to entertainment, other types of product sales, other types of experience. And I think our head of digital, Kikunaga-san, is speaking at this conference about the customer experience in digital. So he's from Dell, Apple, and he was a consumer guy. So absolutely, we think of it as retail all the time.
But I think it depends on stage length.
That's our company, not
right?
necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to feel like you're in a retail environment for 2 hours, right? 90 minutes. I think, as Okada-san said, if I'm on a 10-hour, 12-hour, 16-hour flight, rest is important. And to feel like I'm in a retail environment, not sure anyone wants to do 16 hours.
But Shakeel, once again, you're making a mistake there. But once again, you're saying...
So I'm just commenting the retail.
You're just talking about the flight time.
Yeah.
We think of retail. I think of it as a customer. It doesn't have to be brick and mortar. It doesn't have to be in the plane. We think of them further on. And of course, retail also doesn't mean pushy sales. It means effective sales, right? And how do you add value? And the customer actually wants to
来说的话呢，不只是通过你的销售，其实做的是现在一整条的线的服务，就是包括就是提高个人体验。所以他说，我觉得我们是一个零售。
We offer the possibility of we can force it on them for 10 hours in a row. It means that when we can personalize the content on the screen or on the tablet, it's there if you want to buy, and we have to do it in a nice, modern way, so that it's not too pushy. But we think we need to be more retail than we've been in the past.
I think the issue with retail, what I've seen is that the legacy carriers were looking at new revenue streams. And so it was just, oh, my cost base is unsustainable, I can't get my costs down, so let me scramble at things that I can push on people more to try and cover revenue. Whereas now the mindset is changing and saying, I don't just need sources of revenue to cover cost, because that's my perspective as an airline. I need to start thinking about what the customer wants, and I need to be able to deliver that customer a set of products and services, part of which is a flight.
从公司来说，以前我们的想法可能就只是说，好了，
But
通过增加这个
yeah, personally, but retail is really good incentive for the customer to enjoy their entire journey. And talking about airport is enjoying a lot of profit by selling a lot of products. But who brings passenger into that terminal? Airline did. So airline is really entitled to capture this opportunity, not only for profit making, but to make sure customer will be happier. And what device will make it happen? 5-10 years ago, I mean, the customer devices were not capable of doing such kind of, I mean, the purchasing or shopping, entertainment. But now they get a mobile phone, and they are very capable. So the key will be IT or, I mean, solutions. And talking about solutions, legacy carrier tend to ask their IT challenge to their own in-house people, but instead, now, like this gathering today, we get so many potential IT vendors. So airline can go this way and the other way very quickly, very quick and cheaper way to make it happen. So things are changing rapidly, and we need to be prepared for that.
So Okada-san, you're a great segue guy, because that is exactly what the rest of the event is all about, right? It really is about that experience and that journey, and thinking of how do we connect that journey, whether it's an airport, whether it's an airline, whether it's a retail shop. It really is about how do we connect that to make that experience something that is enjoyable and that someone comes back to. So that's a great comment.
So
we have time for one more question.
I've just got one for Emir. I'm saving it for the end. We've got a couple of minutes left. You're now a customer. So what parting advice could you give the industry now that you're stepping out and becoming our future customer?
I think fly LCC. No, I think what the industry should has always been learned. It's about the change of environment, in terms of that, So, but again and again, I think customer experience is very important. As a customer, you always choose. I think branding is important also. Because the brand is always created, it attached to what is your expectation in terms of, you travel ANA, so these, I think these are the things that needs to be strengthened in terms of those things, because as customers we have a lot of choice, what we can fly, I mean, at the end of the day, the seats and everything, everybody has it. But what people don't have is the feeling in terms of the experience. So, but it's a double-edged sword, because once you invest in those things, your cost goes up. So now you have to find out how do you make this efficiently, and then how can what do you insource and what do you outsource. So I think that's my suggestion.
Okay, thanks guys very much. So let's give the panel a big round of applause, please. Thank you.